A North British colonel named James Grant, in February of 1774, at a parliamentary debate over the unfolding conflict between the Great British and the colonies, dismissed the risk from the Americans. He said, quote, "Americans are unequal to the people of this country in devotion to women and in courage, and worse than all, they are religious." A year later, because time moved slowly back then, the content of this speech had made it to Benjamin Franklin, and he had sent a reply to Philadelphia for publication, which was printed February 7th of 1775. It was titled, "An Imaginary Speech." There is a bit of debate about if the text actually came from Franklin, but the National Archives have arguments about while it's not conclusive, it is highly plausible that it's Franklin's writing. So I'm not going to get too far in the weeds there. We're going to assume it's Franklin. And the critique from Grant had three prongs. First, Americans were unequal to the British in their devotion to women. This was a poke both at masculinity and sexuality, and to this, Franklin, a well-known ladies' man, said the following: "Sir, let the rapid increase and population of America, compared to the decrease of England and of Scotland, show which of the two people are most effectually devoted to the fair sex." Most effectually devoted to the fair sex is quite a line, even from Franklin. Second, the second prong was that the Americans lacked courage in comparison to the British. Franklin spent 70% of his imaginary speech on this point, reminding the reader first of the Americans' capture of Louisbourg and conquest of Nova Scotia, and their saving of the British troops from utter destruction in the expeditions under Braddock and to Fort Pitt. Franklin references remarks by James Wolfe and others who also disparaged the Americans. Wolfe had said on May 20th of 1758, quote, "The Americans are in general the dirtiest, most contemptible, cowardly dogs you can conceive. There's no depending on them in the action. They fall down dead in their own dirt and desert by battalions, officers and all. Such rascals are those, are rather an encumbrance than any real strength to an army." Franklin's response to men like Grant and Wolfe came next in his imaginary speech. Will the gentleman come to the particulars? Will he name the American he has insulted with impunity? Who is the provincial officer who turned his back in the day of battle? There is hardly a day or hour in which the honorable gentleman does not meet an American. Does he insult any one of them with impunity? Nearing. Come back over here. Thank you. Has he or will he put their spirit to the proof? Till he has done that, silence, I am sure, will do more honor to his own. The honorable gentleman says, Franklin continues, the regulars treated the provincials as beasts of burthen. There are many in the provincial of the provincial officers in this town. I have the honor of knowing them, and I can assure this house that no man living would say as much to their face with impunity. The Americans, sir, are well satisfied that the ministry intend to make beasts of burthen of them. They tell you, however, that they are not hewers of wood and drawers of water for any men upon earth. The object of this motion is to compel them. It is my duty to say they will and ought to resist such an attempt, and that if I were there, I should do it without a moment's hesitation. What Franklin means by this is that the Americans have been treated as less than equal to British and forced to be laborers, and that the British policies are intended to continue this pattern. And Franklin says, essentially, that the Americans will not be simple laborers to the crown. They will not be hewers of wood and drawers for water for any men upon earth. The last point, brief, is Franklin's defense of the criticism that Americans were too religious. Franklin points out that it was the religious British who helped free the crown from the Stuarts, and closes out by saying, "Does that sharpen his resentment against the Americans, who inherit from their ancestors not only the same religion, but the same love of liberty and spirit to defend it?" Thank you to my friend Nearing.